So overall, the diffusion model is one of the most popular models in neuroeconomics. Interestingly, that some biologists suggest that, for example, collective insects use the same approach as the diffusion model to make collective decisions. So, for example, honeybees, they make very important collective decisions that perhaps are based on the diffusion mechanism. So, as you know, honeybees are very collective insects. They live in large colonies. Perhaps you know that they can communicate to each other, and they can actually communicate their direction and the distance to the resource of food. So within the dance, they actually communicate these two important parameters. As you see here, this bee can actually transmit this information to other bees. So they use dances to communicate quite complex information. Once upon a time, honeybees make most important decision in their life. Actually, time to time, the colony is splitted and hive produces a swarm. This new colony normally makes a stop nearby on a tree, and this young colony makes the most important decision in the life of bees. They actually decide where to establish the new hive, where to create the new home. If they will select the bad place, the colony will die during the cold winter. So this is the most important decision in the life of the colony. And how this decision is achieved? So actually, there are specialized bees called scouts. They search environment for the new homes. So they search environment to find new places to establish the colonies. They come back to the swarm and they start to dance. In this dance, they encode the direction to the new home and the quality of the home. So the scouts try to engage each other and try to advertise certain direction. So at certain point of time, you can see different scouts dancing, advertising different directions. But at some point, all scouts will advertise only one direction and colony will move in this direction. So here you see the actual study, the actual results investigating this group decision process. Each color indicates the dance for a certain direction. The size of the line indicates the number of scouts dancing for a certain direction. So you see, for example, that at 11 o'clock there are 8 scouts dancing for the east direction, and there are other scouts dancing, advertising other direction. So for example, you also see that at 1 o'clock 11 scouts advertise the south direction, but next morning you also see 14 scouts advertising southwest direction, and the number of the scouts is growing. At next morning you see that all scouts are advertising the same direction. At the same moment the colony moves to the new place. So actually, entomologists find a striking similarity between the group decision of bees and the diffusion process in our brains. So in the same way as our neurons, for example, in the area MT, accumulate sensory evidences for the decision, and this evidence is integrated in the neurons of the area LIP. In the case of the group decision of honeybees, so scouts detect information about the potential places for the new home of the colony. They bring this information to the colony, they dance, and colony accumulates this information. Actually, the accumulation process is indicated by the number of dancers, by the number of scouts advertising the same direction. So we see a similarity with the perceptual decisions. In the diffusion process, first, the sensory information is detected by the neurons in the area MT. Next, this information is integrated by the neurons in the area LAP, and these integrators affect each other and inhibit alternative decisions. And finally, when activity of the neurons in the area LAP reaches a threshold, the decision is finalized. In the same way, we can explain the group decision of the honeybees. There is a limited number of scouts, and they advertise and dance for the limited time. So by intensive dances, they engage each other to study, investigate, to visit the new sites. These scouts go to the site, advertised by other scouts, come back and engage other scouts to visit the sites. So the scouts affect each other, and at the end all scouts are engaged into the dance for the same direction. So actually the group decision of this young colony can be modeled as a diffusion process. So scouts accumulate information for, let's say, site A and B, and whenever there is a critical amount of evidence that site A is better than site B, when there is a quorum, the colony moves to this site. So there is very interesting similarity between the group decisions of social insects and decisions produced by our neurons. So if you would be very interested in this topic, I strongly recommend you to read very interesting books on honeybee democracy, on group decisions of social insects. But for now, it would be enough to take this home message that our nervous system perhaps calculate decisions based on the diffusion mechanism. In the case of the perceptual decisions, first, the sensory evidences for the alternatives are detected by motion detectors in the brain area MT. Next, this information is integrated in the brain area LAP. So these integrators accumulate information over time, integrate information over time, and whenever the activity of these neurons reaches threshold, the decision is finalized. At the same time, these neurons inhibit alternative decisions. So we can split this process in a few stages. So first, the information about the evidences for alternatives is detected in the sensory area MT. Next, this information is accumulated in the area LAP, and finally this information goes to the motor area that triggers the motor response. So the decision-making neurons in the area LAP have to reach a certain threshold to finalize the decision and to activate the motor neurons that actually produce the behavior. So we applied this model to the perceptual decisions. But this model can be used to explain various decisions, and neuroeconomics uses these models quite often to explain very complex decision-making process. So this diffusion model is a relatively simple idea suggesting that our neurons are comparing evidences for alternatives. They encode this difference as a firing rate, and if the firing rate of these decision-making neurons exceeds a threshold, the decision is finalized. So, as we will see during the course, the nervous system actually performs this diffusion model-like calculation during the decision-making process.